It's 11:15, and I like to welcome everybody to our webinar, which is now open. My name is Mariana Balaban, and I'm a Senior Project Manager with the Engineering and Construction Division at the City of Toronto, and I will be your moderator for the next 2 hours. It is with great pleasure to welcome you to the 13th annual seminar celebrating International Women's Day, organized by the Ontario Public Works Association. This is my 4th year of organizing this with the same committee, which I'm very proud of. So this year's theme is Choose to Challenge, and here are the hashtags for your social media posts today. First and foremost, I will start with a thank you to all the frontline workers and the land acknowledgement. Today, we are webcasting from Ontario to guests from coast to coast, Canada, and from what I've seen on the attendee list to United States. I want to acknowledge that we are on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous people. They continue to care for this land, they continue to shape Ontario today, and I want to show our respect. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they are still relevant today. Today, we also pay respect to all Indigenous people from all nations across Canada who call Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and Vancouver their home, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. Aujourd'hui, en plus, nous rendons hommage à tous les peuples autochtones qui habitent à Toronto, à Ottawa, à Montréal et Vancouver, qu'ils soient de la région ou d'ailleurs au Canada. Nous sommes reconnaissants de pouvoir travailler sur ce territoire. Now, I will turn over the mic to Don Kudo, OPWA President-elect, to say a few words on behalf of the OPWA, after which we will listen to the greetings sent by Enrico Stradioro, the OPWA President. Don?
Thank you, Mariana. Happy Friday, everyone. My name is Don Kudo. I'm the county engineer with Wellington County and the OPWA President-elect for 2021. Our president, Enrico Stradiotto, was unable to attend, but he did send some video greetings, so I will start his video now.
Just bear with us.
Yep, sorry. Here we go. Here's Enrico.
Hi there, it's Enrico Stradiotto, and I wanted to introduce myself as the 2021 President of the Ontario Public Works Association. With me, I have my two beautiful daughters. This is Alexa.
Hello.
And this is Emery.
Hi.
Unfortunately, I won't be there on Friday to join the virtual event, but I will have a chance to look at the recording later with the girls on the weekend. I want to wish Mariana and her committee success for Friday. It looks like it's going to be a great event, and I hope you enjoy your time. The International Women's Day event for the chapter has proven to be a success year after year, but most importantly, it serves to celebrate and recognize all the women in the public works sector. On a personal note, I want to say thank you for all those involved in International Women's Day for helping to make the future road a little less bumpy for these two girls and all the young girls that will grow up and have a career of their own. Thank you for bringing awareness, and thank you for creating opportunity. With that, I hope you enjoy the event, and I hope that you can join us with future events with the chapter. So girls, before we sign off, anything you want to say?
Girls rock!
All right, have a great event.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, well, that was Enrico, our president for OPWA, and his two daughters. Before we move on to this great program, I briefly want to talk about OPWA membership, committees and volunteers, and our events. So OPWA's mission is connecting the public works community. And we have branches in the Ottawa Valley area, the West Central area of the province, And the association depends on volunteer members for its number of committees. And here are some of the committees shown here. If connecting with public works professionals is of interest to you, I would encourage you to join us as a member, volunteer for a committee, and participate in our many activities and events. There are so many great opportunities to meet and network with peers. One of the best ways to connect with the public works community is through our many events and sessions. Last year, we were forced to go online, and our Public Works Connect series of webinars were created by our education committee, and we will continue with more of these lunch hour sessions in 2021. Our Young Professionals Committee hosts a variety of events for young professionals and for those young at heart. A quick note about Ottawa Valley Branch's International Women's Day event. It's happening on March 9th. Public Works Technology Showcase is an opportunity to showcase tech innovation in public works, and we're looking to launch some lunch hour sessions in late April. National Public Works Week is a week-long celebration for public works communities right across North America. It's a great opportunity for municipalities to recognize staff and for community outreach and education. OPWA will be hosting a series of events during this week. Golf Day is penciled in for June, and we hope that we can host this event this year. Today's keynote speaker, Keely Dedman, along with being a top-notch public works leader, is also OPWA's Golf Day organizer extraordinaire. The American Public Works Association conference called PWX is scheduled to happen in person in St. Louis in late August, bringing together public works professionals right across North America. In the fall, we host our very popular and informative annual right-of-way conference. And we generally start off our year with an AGM and awards conference where we recognize public works individuals and a variety of exceptional projects that have been improving communities across the province. And finally, this year was the first time in 32 years that we have not been able to host our annual ski day, but plans are already in the works for 2022. So please connect with OPWA by checking out our website for information on membership, committees, volunteer opportunities, and events. And now I'll turn it back to Mariana to kick off today's program. So I hope you enjoy, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Don. I'll take it over and I like to go over the this year's International Women's Day theme and emphasize that the International Women's Day campaign runs all year long with collaboration and action. Individually, we're all responsible for our own thoughts and actions all day, every day. We can all choose to challenge and call out gender bias and inequality. We can all choose to seek out and celebrate women's achievements. Collectively, we can all help create an inclusive world. From challenges comes change, and today, in our pledge to diversity and inclusion, we will hear from our distinguished speakers how choosing to challenge changed their lives and careers. Here is the event sequence. We are honored to welcome 4 outstanding female leaders who will share their career journeys with us. As you can see, they come from 4 different areas of expertise. Keely Dedman represents senior leadership in the public sector, joining us from Guelph today. Welcome, Keely. Marie-Geneviève Nielsen brings proactive asset management to the table all the way from Ottawa. Welcome, Geneviève. Arlene Didier joins us from Toronto and will speak about women in construction and her love for solving complex project issues in North America. Welcome, Arlene. And Beth Weir, who will join us a little bit later after an important meeting, who's the first female director of operations in your region. And she will walk us through her trailblazing journey, all the way from operator to the top leadership. At 1 p.m., we will have our social event, which promises to stretch our minds. Alison, who's my social events director, in the committee will provide you with a few key details about this. So, Alison.
Thank you, Mariana. We are very excited to host a virtual trivia event at the end of the presentations. We have 20 multiple choice questions ranging from music, pop culture, science, and history. Make sure you stay to the very end of the presentations because all participants will be randomly entered into a draw to win 3 free complimentary registration to next year's International Women's Day event, which hopefully will be in person. Winners will be contacted at the end of the seminar via email. Good luck to everyone. Thanks, Mariana. I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Alison. So please stay with us to the end. I promise it's a lot of fun. After our social break, we will close out the webinar with my closing remarks and then launch our survey. It will only take 3 or 4 minutes for you to provide your input and suggestions. Before we begin our program, just a quick reminder to maintain the webinar etiquette as the event is recorded. For the best experience, please continue to keep off your video and mic. We have an amazing crowd today. From all the 325 or more registrants, we have approximately 240 joining us. So this is a great participation, and we're looking forward to spend the hour with you. If you do have questions, please send them in the Q&A window, which will be monitored by Tara Clayton, and she will ask our presenters 1 or 2 questions, with the remainder being addressed offline at a later date. Now, I have the pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Ms. Kelly Dedman, who's joining us today from as the City of Guelph's Deputy Chief Administrative Officer of Infrastructure, Development and Enterprise. Her departmental portfolio includes planning and building, facilities and energy management, environmental services, engineering and transportation, and economic development and tourism. Kelly has been with the City of Guelph since 2014 and was previously the General Manager of Engineering and Transportation. Prior to Guelph, she held engineering positions with cities of Cambridge and Mississauga and started her career as a consulting engineer in the private sector. She's a passionate advocate for municipal infrastructure and public works, and currently serves as the chair of the Regional Public Works Commissioners of Ontario. Previously, she served as the president of the Canadian Public Works Associations and past president of the Ontario Public Works Association in 2011. Over the course of her career, she has participated in several high-profile stakeholder groups that provide the subject matter expertise and guidance to the federal government, such as the Municipal Infrastructure Forum and the Canadian Report Card Advisory Committee. Kelly is also the newly appointed Peel Region's Commissioner of Public Works, and she's currently transitioning into her new role. So Kelly, welcome to our webinar. The mic is yours.
Thank you so much, Mariana, for that lovely introduction. Please bear with me as I get my presentation up and running. So yes, I'm very honored to deliver today's keynote address and share my insights on leadership with all of you, our incredible community of women in public works. And I see that we have a few men joining us today as well. Thank you. I'm truly inspired by how many of you have tuned in for today's International Women's Day webinar. It's events like this and the OPWA itself that are so important in that they foster a supportive network that facilitates change in our professions. Let me start by saying, start off by saying that I love this year's International Women's Day theme, and Mariana mentioned it earlier, choose to challenge. It puts us in a growth mindset, which allows us to be more open to change and improvement. I personally am choosing to challenge, to hold myself to account, to better learn about all of the women around me. And it was while reflecting on the the women that I've seen in prominent leadership roles over the past year and their approach to managing through the pandemic crisis that I landed on my topic for today. That works. So it started when a friend had shared an inspiring video from the Washington Women's Leadership Initiative, and it really resonated with me. And I thought I'd start today by playing that for you. Well, I think I might have ended that too early. My apologies, because it really ends with a great crescendo. My apologies. I will, perhaps we can send out a link to that so that people can finish watching that at the end. It gives me goosebumps every single time that I watch it. It's cute, but it also really demonstrates just a few of the inspiring women who've shown such tremendous leadership over the past year. There's no question that in this time of uncertainty, effective leadership's never been more important. So in the spirit of International Women's Day and the Choose to Challenge theme, I'll share with you today some of the traits that I've seen to be a departure from those associated with traditional leadership and that have continued to rise to the top throughout the pandemic. I think these traits are as inspiring as they are practical.
Excellent.
So you may have seen this infographic before on LinkedIn or on some other websites. It conveys some of the salient contrasts in traditional and non-traditional leadership that stand out today. When I use the term traditional leadership, or old school as depicted here, I'm talking about the classic dictionary definition of leadership. For example, Merriam-Webster defines a leader as a person who has commanding authority and influence. Traditional leadership behaviors often include directness, includes strength, a high but fragile self-esteem often, as well as confidence and brashness. And at least in the past, those most often afforded the opportunity to exhibit these behaviors were white men who make up the majority of senior leaders. And they're often given leeway to behave according to these terms without question. Non-traditional leadership, in contrast, welcomes questions. Like traditional leadership, it too provides direction, but it takes into account the people who are receiving the direction, and that they have different experiences and different ideas that need to be taken into consideration. Non-traditional leaders provide direction in a way that maximizes respectful engagement. In my experience, the best leaders fall within this non-traditional camp. Those leaders, from my experience, tend to exhibit some common characteristics that I thought I'd share with you. First of all, they're empathetic. They understand that others offer valuable perspectives and take into account the impact that their decisions have on others. They provide clarity. Leaders need to be succinct and straightforward in communicating direction, but they also need to provide context so that it's understood and consistently supported. They also have to be vulnerable and honest. Leaders make mistakes and they fail all the time, like when they cut off a video a little too early in their presentation. But when we're open about this, we're able to connect with others in a way that constructively challenges the idea that strength is synonymous with perfection. Leaders demonstrate strength when they choose to be open about their entire journey and decisions and not just about the successful parts. I think that humility is also so important. Those in leadership roles should never confuse their position with self-importance. Self-importance stops us from seeing other people's perspectives, whereas humility enables trust. Over the past year, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced organizations and individuals to pivot. That's a pretty common buzzword from this past year, to pivot, to do things differently. And our approach to leadership should be no different. We're fortunate to have access to a large body of research over the last year that's revealed some compelling truths about confidence and performance of female leadership. You saw some of that in the video that I played, and this slide highlights a few of the headlines that serve as news to some and well-known facts to others. This collage also includes a number of influential women who embody non-traditional leadership in the face of adversity and, in one respect or another, chose to challenge. I selected these leaders and images to purposely emphasize a gender advantage in non-traditional leadership. In other words, women do it well. However, I need to point out that I've also worked with a number of men who are very good at this style of leadership too. Take, for example, Guelph's CAO and my current boss, Scott Stewart, who ramped up his communications efforts, he modeled empathy, and he pushed for change in meaningful ways throughout the pandemic. Today's realities of an accelerated pace of high volume workloads, remote workforces, hyperpoliticization, and, at least in the public sector, low trust environments necessitates a rigid and more agile leadership approach that fosters connection and influence. So in my career, I've certainly experienced the two types of leadership, the old school and now non-traditional. And I thought I'd share an example of how in my early days, I quickly realized that the traditional leadership approach fell short of getting a job done efficiently. So to set the stage, it was when I was working for the city of Mississauga and was just happily hired into a project manager position. Another senior project manager was assigned to be my mentor, to show me the ropes. So I'll refer to him as the guide in this. Now, I'd already been a supervisor in my previous role, so I had some experience in running meetings. And at my first pre-construction meeting with support staff, there was a contractor, utilities people, as well as others. And it was a relatively complicated reconstruction project. So my approach was to start the meeting off with introductions of each attendee and to give a high-level overview of the project to help build a sense of team around the work that we had ahead of us. As soon as we got into the details of the project, I encouraged the attendees to speak up and share their thoughts and their solutions. And I thought we arrived on some solid decisions by the end of that meeting. I conducted that session in a way that I would want to see it happen if I were an attendee. Following that meeting, however, my guide told me what I needed to change before the next meeting. First, I had to own the room and act like the boss. There was no need to introduce others. Apparently, I was the only person that people should be focused on. And as for being open to solutions from the group, according to him, that made me look weak. It was my job to give direction and the attendees' jobs to listen. I didn't necessarily agree with that, but I was still very new. So I thought I'd try to adjust my approach to fit what I was told was the way things are done in construction here. So then a couple of weeks later, I happened to see a similar group of staff who, and another contractor who were coming out of a meeting room, and caught up with a friend in that group and asked what it was all about. And they jokingly referred to it as a post-pre-construction meeting for another project that my guide was leading. And I was confused and asked more about it. Apparently, the staff would regularly set up a second meeting after his initial pre-construction meetings, but without him to actually discuss the issues and to work on the solutions. This didn't make sense to me, and I asked if it happened after the meeting that I'd held the week before, and they said no, there was no need because we covered it all through the session that I had led. So apparently the project teams were constantly having to double up on meetings on all of his projects because of his leadership style. Not only was it highly inefficient for everybody involved, but it also didn't create engagement or a sense of teamwork. And I think that's so essential in achieving a common goal. So I decided to stick with my approach, even if it wasn't the way things were done according to some. Now, that's a relatively minor example, and I do have many similar instances that I could share from my early days. That's though why I'm so thrilled to see broader recognition of leadership traits like collaboration and communication and empathy over the past decade or more. Despite those few examples that I referred to, I do have to say that throughout my career, I've been fortunate to have a very supportive network of peers, managers, and friends who valued my contributions and saw my potential regardless of my gender. For those of you starting out in your career, that may sound like an odd thing to say, regardless of my gender, because we've seen such a promising shift over time of more women in the public works profession. However, when I first graduated and entered the workforce in a consulting engineering firm over 25 years ago, wow, I was the only female of 15 or so engineers in the company. Fortunately, things have changed since then, and today I'm proud to be part of an executive team that's 50% women, and it's at an organization that values diversity and inclusion. Like many other organizations, we recognize that we have a long road ahead on our diversity journey in Guelph, but I'm confident that we're on the right path and the leadership in place is committed to making a difference. As you heard through my introduction, I'll soon be leaving Guelph and joining the region of Peel, which I'm also very excited about because it's led by female CAO, Janice Baker, who also exemplifies those effective New Age leadership traits that I spoke of earlier. So, organizational culture, and this is what we all look at when we seek job satisfaction, organizational culture, and it's so strongly influenced by leadership. And that means we need to ensure that we have effective leadership. For that reason, I thought I would close out today with a call to action for you to challenge traditional leadership ideals. How can you do that? Here's some tools. You can start by listening, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Encourage others to do the same, to ask questions and to listen. There's loads of great ideas and creative solutions out there, but not all leaders ask for them. Next, be empathetic to other people's needs and situations. An approach that works for one person might not work for others. So we need to work within the context of our situation. As well, it's important to be transparent and even vulnerable about your mistakes as a means to connect with others. Use your experiences in an open and an honest way to help others learn. And finally, look for opportunities to be collaborative, to support diversity and to foster a culture of inclusion. This means challenging the status quo and using your influence to support others. These tools that I spoke of are foundational to shift away from the traditional way of doing things, gender inequality being one of them. if you don't, and what I will say is you don't have to be a formal leader to put those tools into action. Informal leadership is also an effective means to creating change around you. So with those tools, I hope you will equip yourself and choose to challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Keely. That was great. Yeah. So we do have time to take a couple of questions, and I see that we have one question for you, Keely, and that is, how does your organization look and select for these traits and support diversity when they hire or promote staff?
Good question. I think that there's a number of different facets to that. Part of it starts long before the actual recruitment stage. I think it's about attracting diversity to your organization. And if you can demonstrate that you value diversity and inclusion within your organization, then it's a place where people want to work, and it's a place where people would feel comfortable applying for a position. So I think it starts long before that. And I think through training, education, and just a growing body of knowledge, ensuring that the leaders in the organization are aware and that we continue to ask the questions, the important and the relevant questions, so that we gain the perspective that we need.
Thank you. And one more question that we have for you is, what is the biggest change or challenge you had to overcome as a leader?
Oh, good question, and still relevant. I would have to say that this past year of the COVID-19 pandemic has been probably the most challenging of my career because of the uncertainty that it involved. As leaders, we like to plan, well, at least I like to have things planned, to set my goals, to know where I'm going. And when I make decisions, base it on collaborative decision making and on the best data and evidence that's available. And the pandemic of the past year put us in a position where we didn't know what was coming next. We didn't know where we were going. We were making decisions based on the best information that we had at the time, and it changed the environment for a period of time where we couldn't engage in collaborative decision making because decisions needed to be made very quickly and decisively, and we needed to move on. It also as a leader, seeing the impact that the pandemic has had on all of the staff has been difficult, because you can see the stress and the strain, and trying to support those staff to continue to reach their objectives and their goals in the workplace while trying to balance what they're feeling at the same time has been, it's been an enormous challenge.
Thank you so much, Keely. That's all I think we had time. Mariana, do I have time for one more question? One more has popped in. Maybe we can be quick. What began your path? Okay, thank you. What began your path to work in public works, and was this career path you had always envisioned for yourself?
Oh, good question. No, it was not a career path that I had envisioned for myself when I was in high school. If you were good in math and science, I grew up in Northern Ontario. The guidance counselors and teachers were, well, that has to be medicine then. Nobody ever talked to me about engineering or public works or anything like that. So in fact, my path had a bit of a diversion. I started out I have an undergraduate degree in biology as well as engineering, because I'd started out in that side, more on the science side, and realized very quickly when I got to university that there was a whole lot more out there that I was interested in. I hung around with the engineers partially because they were fun, but also because I was very interested in the work that they were doing, and I saw a direct application of the technical to of the academic to what I was seeing in the real world. So I changed course and started moving in that direction. And I think that today there's so much more awareness of career opportunities. It doesn't matter what your gender is. Career opportunities are provided to both young boys and young girls in school. And the more that we can do to promote that, to ensure that people find the right path early on, not that I regret my winding path to get to where I am now, but I think it would be, it's worthwhile to continue doing that type of work.
Excellent, thank you. So that was all we had time for. So just to let all of the attendees know, we do only have time for about 2 to 3 questions. So any of the other questions that are left unanswered, we will try to answer them after. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Keely. That was very relatable. I think 99.9% of the women on this webinar can relate to your leadership experience. Next up, we have Marie-Geneviève Nielsen on deck, and Angela will introduce her. Angela?
Thank you, Marianne. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Jen Nielsen. Jen is the acting manager of the asset management branch at the City of Ottawa. She has over 15 years of experience in water resources, asset management, and capital planning. And I'm looking forward to her presentation on her experience in a new leadership role during COVID-19. Over to you, Jen.
Just a second. Excellent. Thank you. Welcome, Geneviève.
Great. Thanks. Are you guys seeing the presentation properly on the screen?
I think you have to do the presentation mode.
Yeah. Sorry, 2 seconds. There we go. Is that better?
Excellent.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody.
Take it away.
Thanks for your patience. All right. So thanks so much for having me here today. When Ange invited me to present on the topic of Choose to Challenge, I thought my experience in a new leadership role during COVID-19 might be interesting. I will preface, this is a deeply personal presentation. So with that in mind, I don't have any overarching theme or some sort of key thing for you to walk away from or walk away with, but I'm hoping that maybe there's some little nuggets in there that either resonate, might give you ideas of different ways to think about things. And or it might be just enough to know that, hey, you've had a similar experience or somebody else out there has had a similar experience, and something might stick or resonate with you. And sometimes it feels good to know that you're not alone. So with that, a bit about me. I actually grew up in Quebec and I moved to Southern Ontario to attend the University of Waterloo. I took civil engineering, specializing in water resources. I worked in consulting for 6 years. I moved back to the Ottawa area after university so I could be closer to my family. And I work at the City of Ottawa. It's been almost 11 years that I've been here in 5 different roles, all in the engineering field. So it's been fantastic to have been able to stay with the same organization and move around a bit and experience different things. On the personal side, I'm married. I'm a mom of twin 12-year-old girls. I do have hobbies. So I love to knit and spin and travel and cook. And I'll share my top 3 values because I think it may lend a bit of perspective in terms of the way I'm tackling the different challenges that I saw or that I've experienced. So my top 3 values are leadership, balance, and authenticity. So authenticity in the sense of being true to myself. I'll also share a bit about the City of Ottawa. Quite frankly, it's a really great place to work, and I'm not just being paid to say that. I really, truly like it. If I didn't, I wouldn't still be working here after 11 years, I can guarantee you that. So we employ 11,500 full-time employees and another 6,000 part-time employees. And recently we were named one of the National Capital Region's top employers, and just this week, we were named one of Canada's best diversity employers for 2021. So those are 2 things that we're really proud of. Also, in my experience, there's a lot of women in leadership roles in the engineering groups at the city. So just as an example around the service management team, so my peers and my manager, 4 of the 7 at that table are women. And of the 4 main branches, 3 are led by women. We also see directors in the public works areas being women, succeeded by women, and lots of managers on the public works side as well. So the opportunity arose in early 2020 which was an opportunity for an 11-month acting assignment as the manager of asset management. So the role is responsible for leading a team of 85 people and managing approximately $50 billion worth of infrastructure assets. So this group is highly technical and the scope is very broad. So each of these groups may have a few senior engineers, some analysts, some intermediate engineers, maybe some technologists as well, all working on these different elements. And so it's all infrastructure that the city owns, almost all. We also have the Strategic Asset Management Unit, which leads our comprehensive asset management program, some capital planning. So we work closely with finance, infrastructure master plan. So it's very interesting, but within any given day, you could be jumping from a meeting where we're dealing with development issues, jumping over to, hey, when are you going to resurface my road? Onto some strategic discussions about moving asset management forward, business process discussions. So you're really shifting gears all the time. So I'll sidebar for a sec and just talk a little bit about the Associated General Manager program, which is where the opportunity came from, because I think it's a pretty cool program. And actually, I know there's a few people on the call today who have also been benefactors of this program. So a key stat is that within the next 3 years, 39% or 22 members of senior management, so being the general managers and the directors, are eligible for retirement. That's pretty significant, and it's really going to shake up the organization. So the program is an 11-month executive opportunity. So different directors were given the opportunity to basically shadow general managers. And it gave them an opportunity. It was in a department that was not where they came from. So it also provided some opportunities for building relationships with other departments. Having worked in a couple different departments, the cultures can be quite different and the way they operate. So I think it's actually pretty healthy to start having our senior leaders work with different groups, see how they operate. Often we tend to see leaders rise within their own sort of food chain. So I think it offers some really neat opportunities. It also, when you take people out of their core knowledge background, it forces them to really hone in on those leadership skills and refine those. So it's a great opportunity that way too. So as a result, you can imagine if you pull 3 directors out and move them out to a general manager level, that opens up a whole cascading effect. So as a result, we've had 19 cascading developmental opportunities. 6 AGMs have participated in 2 rounds. So I will say, I think for the cascading people, we got the better end of the deal because we're actually able to step into the position ourselves and own it, as opposed to being a shadow or a sidekick with somebody else. So I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity, and I've been able to keep it through both rounds. So I'm going to talk about a few of the challenges that I experienced in this role and some of the choices I made in terms of tackling them. So first off is managing the volume. I could see this one coming a mile away because I could see how busy my boss was before. The email traffic was insane, or it is insane. So it's 2,700 emails per month, including sent and received. That's a lot of traffic. I'm doing about 30 meetings per week. Some days it's upwards of 10 meetings a day. So it doesn't leave a lot of time. I have 10 direct reports, and then of course 85 people across the branch. So the way I chose to tackle this is to ask around, ask others how they do it. So everybody is different, and not everything that I hear from people sticks, but every so often I get these little nuggets, and I can make little tweaks or adjustments in the way that I'm working that help me to improve my skills and improve my ability to manage the volume. I also set boundaries. I don't do meetings before 8 o'clock, and I don't do meetings after 4. I will often work after 4, but if I'm working after 4, it's my time for getting caught up or addressing emails or processing things that need to get processed. Early on, I also developed a system. So I worked very closely with my admin assistant to figure out how we could work together. So what we do is she's in my emails, and I could be in 3 hours straight of meetings. I come back and she's got them categorized, so I can go in and quickly prioritize what I need to do and keep things moving. I feel like in this role, I had to learn how to do email as if I've never done email for the past 20 years. It was a really big dynamic shift, and I've had to get very aggressive about it. Email is not my happy place, so it's been a real shift for me. The other thing I do too is I'll collaborate with other managers to share the load. So sometimes we'll have communications that have to go out. I might put a draft out and send it to the other managers and say, hey guys, do you want to take a look? Feel free to use it if you want. It gives me a second set of eyes, saves them some time. So that's been super helpful. And then they'll also do that sharing back. Another challenge I have is supporting my team. So servant leadership is very important within the city. It's important to me. My relationship with my staff is very important to me, but I have a crazy busy schedule. So how do I stay available when I'm not? So how do I balance all these meetings and make my staff feel like it's okay to pick up the phone and give me a call? So I chose to do shorter but more frequent one-on-ones. So our organization typically does 1 hour one-on-ones, the direct report and the supervisor, every 2 weeks. So I switched that to 30-minute one-on-ones every single week. So I've got a more regular connection. Also with the 30-minute period, it forces us to kind of get down to brass tacks right away and deal with the critical issues. I also set up daily office hours. So it's 1 hour a day. Every day, I aspire to every day. Realistically, there's usually 1 or 2 days a week where I can't make it happen. And that's time where I disclose that to my staff at the beginning of the week. They know if they need to catch me sometime during the day, or if we have an emergency meeting that comes up or something happens, that gives me a bit of float time that I can slip stuff in without it upsetting the apple cart in terms of the schedule. They don't have to use that time, but they know it's there as a backup if needed. And then I send weekly overview emails at the beginning of the week just to kind of lay out, here's what we have going. This is what's coming down the pipe, or the flow or the rhythm for the week. The other challenge is, how do I understand everything? So the scope is so broad. I haven't touched some of these things since university. So I remember doing groundwater modeling courses in university, and I'm having to work with people talking about different groundwater movement, how groundwater flows. I haven't talked about this stuff in 20 years. The same with falling weight deflectometers for roads. It's really, really challenging. So I guess the first thing is, I don't have to. I'm not the expert. I can let the expert be the expert. And I need to understand my role. So I find often my role is a bit of translation. So, and helping the senior engineers and the program managers do that translation. So how do we take highly technical stuff and put it in terms that senior management would understand, or a counselor would understand, or the public would understand, so that they can understand the risk without getting overly technical, understand why something is important. Why do we need to know what they're trying to tell us? I also try to focus on the things that I am bringing to the table. So sometimes I can lend a different lens to things like, have you thought about succession planning when you're doing your hiring? Have you thought about diversity and inclusion? Have you thought about how your counterparts or your stakeholders will feel about what you're proposing? How do you think this is going to land? Sometimes it's a question of governance. I sometimes see people say, hey, I'm working on stuff. How come, like, when does it get approved? How does it get approved? Well, let's put a process in place. So I can bring things to the table that aren't technical, but help people get their jobs done. And then, like Keely was saying, be honest and open, ask questions and listen, take in the information, synthesize and spit it back, confirm that I'm actually understanding what I think I'm understanding. Another challenge, which I'm sure everybody is very familiar with, is adapting to the new reality of COVID. So it turned out to be a bit of an opportunity because it's allowed change, and it's kind of enabled that change in the organization. I chose to be flexible and be open. It also helped that the management team around me, so my manager as well as my colleagues, were also on that same page. So as a service, we were putting forward that approach. I also embrace and champion technology. So not just, yeah, I'm going to use it myself, but encourage those around me to use it, kind of push them over the edge a little bit and get them to start using tools that maybe they aren't so comfortable with, or maybe they're not really comfortable trying to learn. I also had a hit list. So last spring, I had a list of everybody in my branch, and I worked through them one at a time. So if I got 5-10 minutes here or there, I'd send a couple Teams messages out, reach out, how are you doing? What's going on? We swap pictures of the kids, just to connect with people and make them know that or help them to see that they're not alone. And also what was really important to me is acknowledging that everyone's situation is challenging. So there tended to be, we would have these group meetings where we kind of go around the table and see how people were doing. And I found that a lot of the focus tended to be on the parents or on the children of elderly people who are living in long-term care, or, but the focus wasn't so much on the single people or maybe the people that were young couple. The thing is that they might be challenged too, and they might be feeling challenged too. So I always made sure that in those meetings that I asked them how they were doing, because often they would sit silent or didn't even feel empowered, that they were allowed to feel challenged or feel that their situation was tough because, well, I don't have kids. So, you know, it's not as hard as everybody else, but that doesn't take away from the challenges that they might have. So I find that important too, to make sure that they're feeling included. And lastly, how do you balance life? So I'm sure many people on this call can relate to this. So how do I do this very busy job? We went into COVID mode very quickly after I started, so I was still getting my feet underneath me. The kids were home all the time. I found a lot of the times they'd be coming, I'm like, okay, you gotta go away. Okay, you gotta go away. Okay, you gotta go away. And then at the end of the day, I'd feel like a horrible human being. I'm sure they hated it too, felt like I was rejecting them constantly. So my decision was I allow kids to pop into my calls and say hello, and they still do. So they'll come in, they can't dominate the call or take it over, but we're not gonna lose a huge amount of time if we take 30 seconds or a minute to say hello, how are you? Usually brings a smile to people's faces, which is kind of fun too. And then the kids know that it's their space too. Like really work has invaded our home, which is their space. Also during the first lockdown, I took Wednesday afternoons off to play, and then I made up my hours in the evening and caught up on email. It actually worked out well for me because nobody else was working Wednesday evening, so I could get a lot done. But we ended up doing arts and crafts. So that's what the picture is in French, we call it a maquette. So it's, I guess, I don't even know what it would be in English, but we were looking at energy and power and stuff. So we did that one Wednesday afternoon. And what I didn't even realize, like those were decisions that I made for me to make that manageable. I owned it. I told my staff and my team what I was doing. And actually I had a number of people reach out after saying, wow, I was feeling super stressed. I am feeling super stressed. I wanted to do something like that. And I didn't think it was okay, but I see you're doing it. I'm going to have a conversation with my supervisor and make small changes to my schedule so that I can manage my life a bit better. So that was really inspiring for me. And it was a really happy byproduct of having made that choice. So indirectly, it was a bit of a leading by example, but it did open the door for a lot of people to make their lives more manageable as well. And then also make sure I exercise, have dinner with my family. Those things are really important to me. So all in all, I hope you were able to get a few nuggets out of this. In the end, challenges can be opportunities. We need to choose how we tackle them. It gives us an opportunity to think of things differently, maybe try something on for size. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that people might have. Thanks for your time, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen. So we do have a question. What challenges, if any, have you or your staff experienced with kids being at home during COVID? I've noticed that this responsibility has fallen to women in the workplace.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is when your children, the most challenging that I've seen is when we have young kids at home that can't really be left alone. So I'm very fortunate that mine are old enough that they can sort of entertain themselves. Yes, usually it involves a screen, but there's a lot of younger mothers that are in that situation. And what we've done for them is we've adjusted their work hours, but we also monitor very closely, because what ends up happening is a lot of times they'll get up early. So they'll get up at 6 in the morning, work until 7 or 8, then take over childcare for a while. And then when they're done the childcare portion and their spouse can take over, then they're back working again till 11 o'clock at night. So you're basically going full out from 6 in the morning to 11 at night, and that's not healthy either. So we've tried to monitor that very closely and make sure that they are getting some breaks in there too. And being super flexible with schedules. Sometimes they'll make up time on the weekend. I'm not trying to be super picky about how many hours they're working. I think the dichotomy though is often it tends to be some of our are go-getters and high performers that find themselves in those situations as well, where they're trying to do everything. And even if you tell them, hey, you know, work a few hours less this week, they're still going to go because they're goal-oriented and they want to meet their deadlines. So it's also helping to reach out and say, hey, like, give yourself a break, take a deep breath. You don't have to be operating at 110% right now.
Yeah, and I think part of it also is just the fact that, you know, we can't be going out on weekends and doing other things. So people's social life is not the same as it used to be. So they're filling that gap with work, or at least I'm finding that with my team. So. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I do it myself, right? So whereas the computer might be closed in the bag, well, it's sitting open in my front room. I can pop in and do 5 minutes of email here and there, and 5 minutes turns into 20, turns into an hour, right?
Exactly. So we do have another question for you, Jen. Where do you see asset management in the next 5 years? And then there's also, is this an area where we have to grow?
Oh, absolutely. We've got to grow. So I think we're in the process of developing some really foundational pieces right now. So with the development of the asset management plans, we've got some legislated deadlines, which is a blessing and a curse. So challenging because we've got these hard deadlines to meet, but a blessing because it really pushes the envelope and forces us to build these really important and challenging pieces. Once they're built though, we have to keep them alive and running. So asset management is a journey. It's an ongoing improvement process. It's not a write the report once, put it on a shelf. So really, I feel like we're building up, but it's not like we're kind of climbing over a hump and we're going to come back down afterwards. We're going to have to continue building and taking care of our asset management pieces as we move forward. So it is an exciting area, and I think more and more people will understand it better, understand how it relates to their job. So the people who don't have asset management in their title, over time will begin to relate to it a bit better too.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's a collaborative initiative across corporations, and it is a living document or a living entity, right, that we need to keep feeding into.
For sure, and I think a lot of people think asset management is done for them by the asset management branch, but but there's a lot more to it than that, and I think a lot of people do asset management and don't even recognize it as that, right?
Exactly. So we have one more question I'm going to squeeze in. Have you been stretched between your current position and your previous position?
So no, I've been very fortunate that I was able to backfill my position right away, and the person I had backfilling has been phenomenal and really stepped up to the plate. So, and quite frankly, I don't think I'd have capacity to do both because this is really, really quite a full job on its own.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Genevieve. Next up, we have Arlene Didier, and just one comment here. We had a question previously in the Q&A window, and it was about work-life balance for leaders. And I think Jen has touched on that. Great mind reader. Thank you, Jen. So next up, we're gonna go to Arlene, and Andrea will introduce her.
Okay, thank you very much, Mariana. I have the pleasure of introducing Arlene to the group today. With over 25 years of experience, Arlene has an extensive background in architecture, construction, and project management in the commercial, retail, and hospitality industry. Arlene began a career in architecture and real estate development following the completion of her architecture degree at Carleton University. Arlene's entire career has centered around working with commercial clients to deliver them the real estate space they need. In the last 10 years with Colliers, she has grown the private sector business in Canada over 500%. Arlene is a natural leader who can motivate project teams and provide meaningful insight into technical issues. This skill set has allowed her to thrive in her new role as director. In late 2019, Arlene became part of the Diversity and Inclusion Executive Champions for Colliers North America to implement the vision to be an inclusive workplace. Last year, Arlene was awarded the Catalyst Honors 2020 Business Leader Award, which recognizes role models of workplace inclusion in corporate Canada. I'd like to welcome Arlene.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. Am I okay? Can you guys see my screen okay? And me?
Yes.
Great. I've always been what my mother calls headstrong, delivering comprehensive arguments on why I should be allowed to do one thing or another. And I remember putting my negotiation skills to the test. I was in grade 2, and it was fall registration for after-school programs. You see, I grew up in Bloor West Village in Toronto, a well-established family neighborhood composed of a mix of European immigrants and us. And I had gotten into a debate with my mother because she would not let me go to Polish class. She patiently explained to me that I was not Polish. And after pleading for what seemed like forever, I conceded and proposed an alternate solution: Maltese class. Frustrated, she simply said no. So I packed my portable record player, my 2 records, my doll, and I left the house. Now, I only made it to the end of the block because I was not allowed to cross the street, but my point had been made. And after a short time, my little brother strolled by and he casually asked me where I was going. And after a brief explanation and his clear disinterest in my plight, he asked me if he could have my bedroom. Quickly reassessing the situation, I made the decision to return home. I had shown them. And although I did not end up in Polish or Maltese class, I learned the power of agency, which is what brings us together today. International Women's Day. It's all about giving girls and women agency and the freedom and opportunity to choose, to control their cultural, social, political, and economic future. And ultimately, it's a call to action to accelerate equality and the freedom to choose a future full of possibilities, freeing both women and men from conventional definitions of who or what they should be. And although my first exploration of my agency did not quite work out as planned, Brownies was a solid runner-up. My name's Arlene Didier, and I've worked in construction my entire career. I'm going to shamelessly tell the story of women in construction. First, I'll start with some facts. It might be a little bit dry, but it's very revealing. And then I'll go to the most unlikely place, interpreting this industry through my mirror and my lens and my history. First, I'd like to thank Collier's project leaders for giving me the space and time to speak here today. And a special thanks to OPWA's team for organizing this event and inviting me. So first, let's break down some facts very quickly. Male-dominated occupations are those that are comprised of 25% women or less. These industries are particularly vulnerable to reinforcing male stereotypes that make it difficult for women to excel. So just the facts. 37,058,856 is the population of Canada as of 2018. 61.3% is the number of women aged 15 and older employed in Canada. 12.1% is the number of women that work in the field of real estate and construction today. 7.9% represent white women in construction. 1.7% are Latinx. 0.7% are Asian. And less than 0.5% are Black. I'm a miracle. And unfortunately, my First Nations sisters are too few to be captured as a percentage. I'm here today to talk about the miracle of women in construction. You. I thought there'd be an imbalance in the construction industry, but the numbers represent a very difficult truth. There's been little progress over the last 25 years. And as of June 2020, Stats Canada, 1.46 million people work in the construction industry. 182,000 are women. 1.16 million work on site and 300,000 work off-site. In real terms, this means for every 100 men on site, there are 4 women. Most women work off-site in offices. And in fact, I do both as a project manager of major capital projects and a recovering architect. So how did we get here? I'm not a statistician, historian, or analyst. I am, however, a woman in construction. So what I'll do is hold a mirror to myself and tell my story with its own paradigms and explain my shifts. My hope today is that as I tell my story, you may see your story or your colleague's story, a neighbor's story, or our story, and together we can create a new history, and hopefully creating a reflection in the mirror through a new lens. So starting with paradigm shift in the most unlikely place, beginning with me. And my paradigm, I mean an overall concept accepted by most people in an intellectual community because of its effectiveness in explaining a complex process, idea, or set of data. Now, I'm intentional when I use the word paradigm because a stereotype is fixed and a paradigm can shift. So what if I told you that as dire as the state of women in construction sounds today, a shift is possible? And what if I told you that you could be the change agent that starts that shift? And what if all you had to do is to make one change today? Let me start my journey in the world of construction with my girlhood. One thing has remained constant in my life. I've always been Black and I've always been a woman. So first, the paradigm young Black female girl, my childhood. I was born in Port of Spain, Trinidad, and grew up in Toronto, Canada. And I was described as disengaged, distracted, disenfranchised, apprehensive, and withdrawn. And as a lower middle class immigrant child of divorced parents and dyslexic to boot, I heard, she tries hard, but it might be all too much for her. It's our recommendation, a teacher told my mother, that your daughter be streamed into a general program. But my mother refused to hear of it. But hearing disengaged, disenfranchised enough times, you begin to believe it. Withdrawn and disengaged? Yeah. So paradigm shift number 1, be defined by no one but yourself. I secretly became engaged, motivated, mindful, perceptive, and creative. How? I hatched a plan. In grade 13, my dance career. I started dancing when I was 6, and I'd spent months convincing my mother that I should take a gap year before university to travel to Europe and secretly launch my dance career. And the simple fact was, I had no intention of returning to Canada. And as part of the deal, amongst many promises that I made my mother, including paying for my 6-month European adventure, was that I'd complete all of my university applications. So I did. But really, what were my chances of getting in? Little to none. I remember a list like yesterday, calling home to tell my mother I wasn't going back to Canada. And she quickly told me to get home like bleeping yesterday. I'd been accepted to architecture school. What? I couldn't believe it, but I did. I got accepted to multiple schools. So I had to come home to attend Carleton University School of Architecture. And I picked that school because it was the farthest away from my mother, and I'd show her. But a funny thing happened. I was like a duck to water. And by the time I graduated, I was living in Rome, Italy, working with the Directed Studies Abroad program and doing an archaeological dig in the south of France in the off season. Paradigm shift number 2. Fear is air. And I danced with my fear. Fear of my teachers, my mother, my professors, the world. Architecture was the first thing I was really good at. Nominated by my peers and winning the Alfa Rochi Award in architecture. a North American blind competition. And my father's response to hearing I was becoming an architect? Why would you do that? You're young, you're Black, and a woman. Well, I'd show him. And so yes, in my adulthood, I'm still a Black female. And I point this out because I'm often asked, what's it like being a Black female in construction? Which to me is an inane question. May I ask you, what's it like being you? In my adulthood, I was described as arrogant, aggressive, stubborn, impertinent, and opinionated. Sound familiar? So this is the paradigm. I'm setting up for a meeting. And at that time, I was a young intern architect. A man walks into the room and I'm nervous because I'm in charge of a major rollout for one of the big 4 banks in Canada. He sits down and asks if I can get him a coffee. I politely told him there was coffee outside, I think, because it wasn't my office. He then tells me how he likes his coffee. I continued setting up, and when the meeting convened and we had all introduced ourselves, he said, quite sincerely, "Oh, so you're the architect. Good for you. Great job." Paradigm shift number 3. Arrogant? No. Confident? Hell yes. Determined, focused, bold, and thoughtful. I left Canada in the late 90s and moved to Washington, D.C., and I practiced architecture there for almost a decade before moving to project management. And I went on to become the first Black president of one of the oldest real estate organizations in Washington. And during that time, I met an old, white, very rich developer from Virginia. And I had a paradigm about his type. And I was wrong. He became my mentor. Paradigm shift number 4, don't judge a book by its cover. I needed to learn to challenge with empathy. And he clearly knew privilege was invisible to those that had it, but felt it was his responsibility to do something with it. And he challenged me through guidance and empathy. He encouraged me to be more than I thought I could. To own real estate, to hold steadfast to my principles. He changed my paradigm of him. He changed my paradigm of myself. But that's a longer story. So my last paradigm and my most favorite, my primehood. Just letting you know, I'm still a Black female. Some may say I've become obstinate, but professional, outspoken, but sensitive, and very, very bossy. And for some, that may be true. Here's where I go back to the beginning. 2 things have happened to me since I've been back in Canada. I came to understand my father's words at hearing I was becoming an architect. You're young, Black, and a woman. Why would you do that? And here's my paradigm shift number 5. He was afraid for me when he said that. He saw the world through his lens. He saw barriers and injustice through his eyes and his mirror. And what he's come to know is that I'm tenacious, expert, strategic, diplomatic, and a leader. I work for a great company with amazing people. And the strangest thing happened last year. I had a young woman who works with me nominate me for an award. Now, you think of young people as people to teach, to mentor, and champion. And she and her girl gang of young women and men rallied my peers, our leadership, and they did a whole bunch of work for this submission. And I realized something. She was my promoter, and they were my champions. And the craziest part was, I won. The 2020 Catalyst Canada Business Leader Award. Paradigm shift number 6, reach one and teach one. It's in all of us to do, to be the teacher, the mentor, the sponsor, the champion, the ally. No longer should men be judged on potential and women on past performance. So what can we do? Here are my 3 takeaways from the paradigm shifts. And as you hold the mirror up to yourself and you remember your story and my story, and now hopefully a new shared story, think of these. Fear is air. Dance with fear. Don't run from it. Embrace it. Challenge with empathy. Remember, it's okay to challenge old paradigms and status quo, but challenge with empathy. Teach one and reach one. It's our duty to each other to support our entire community, our children, our elders. You must reach one and teach one, be an educator, a mentor, a sponsor, a promoter, a teacher, a champion, an ally. The mirror's reflection is now clear for me. The paradigms have shifted and the lens is new. My name's Arlene Didier and I'm a Black woman in construction. I'm a proud immigrant daughter of Canadian Trinidadians. I'm a headstrong, slightly flawed, wannabe dancing fashionista. I'm an aunt, sister, wife, colleague, friend. I'm a Colliers project leader. Essentially, I'm a builder of buildings, a builder of people, and hopefully, like you, a builder of the future. And my sincere hope is that you share the gift of agency with girls and women every day. Happy International Women's Day. Choose to challenge. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Arlene. We actually do have a couple of questions. So it's actually sad how little progress we have made. I graduated with the engineering degree in 1992, where there were 25% of the class that were women in our small class. Our society is still trying to get to that 25% target overall in engineering enrollment nearly 30 years later. How do we inspire girls to study engineering and other applied sciences?
I think that it's hard to be what you can't see. I think that we need to do things like this in a very broad range. The point of International Women's Day is to set a role model, not only for our peers, but those that are coming up in the world, you know, reaching out to schools and letting them know that these can be really engaging, exciting, and successful careers. So yeah, I think being a role model and reaching out to the community.
Excellent, thank you. Our other question is, what is Colliers' Diversity and Inclusion Program?
So Colliers has really taken a big move in diversity and inclusion. We established a program that addresses both internal training, education, policies, as well as building a champion network, ERGs, and leadership training. It's not the same being on the private sector side as it is on the government side. The government and public side has done a much, much better job than the private sector. I'm proud to say Project Leaders has a good split of work, because a lot of our work is in the public side of the business, but on the real estate side, not so great. So we're really being intentional with an action plan on how to move forward. Thanks.
Thank you. And last question I have for you is, has there been major changes arising in your business from the events of 2019 and 2020 to address women's issues or concerns?
In light of all of the actions, I think Keely's slide in the beginning has shown the momentous push forward of women in the industry. It's really made us take a hard look at ourselves. It's cracked something open that started a momentum. I want everyone to not yield to that momentum for change. You know, what we've done is we're measuring ourselves right now to set real targets that are aspirational and changing the way that we're thinking and having an open exchange and dialogue. We're doing events like this internally now, in podcasts, in interviews, and so it's beyond training. So I think that there's a lot of activity that's taking place. I think that there's action in how we hire and in how we're reaching out to schools and other groups. So I think that we have a long way to go, but we know the truth and we're facing it. We're dealing with it as we move forward. Thanks, Tara.
I am totally going to cram one more question in. Sorry, Mariana. It just popped up.
All right. Go ahead.
It said somebody's asking, I won't go through everything they do. Thank you for your presentation, but how would you recommend someone build confidence as a professional and a female in a male-dominated field?
You know, it's funny. At the beginning of COVID, within the first week, I started to hold a group meeting with women in our company, and it started just in the GTA, and now we have a group of women from across Canada that join us for lunch. We were doing it weekly, and now I do it monthly. And in December, I talked to them about the difference between courage and confidence. Because a lot of people will say, Arlene, you're so confident, you're so confident. And you guys have heard part of my story, and I was not confident. You're not born with confidence, but you can learn to be courageous. And I think courage is something that you just have to say to yourself, why not? And it goes to the first part of my speech here was around agency. And what you need to know ultimately, even when you think, and I could tell stories, but even when you think you have no possible choice, you have agency. And it takes courage to say, why not? Why not me? And sometimes you have to say it to yourself. You just need to take a deep breath, take it in, and say what you need to do. And you get to the point and you move forward and you push through it. And that's how you are courageous, and that courage builds confidence. I hope I answered that question. I don't know if I did.
I think you did. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arlene. This is great. I really love your paradigms, and you know, we all have to keep in mind not to judge by the cover. I love that. Somebody told me once, you know, not all Italians are expressive and not all women are amiable. I think it takes greatness to do what you do, and you are a great example for many women and girls out there. So next on deck, thank you so much for your inspiring presentation today. Next on deck, we have Beth Weir from your region, and we will have Monica introducing her.
Thank you, Mariana. It is my pleasure to introduce Beth Weir as our next speaker. Beth has a background in water and wastewater operations. She's been with the Regional Municipality of York for 27 years and is currently the Acting Director of Operations, Maintenance, and Monitoring. She is a committee chair for CWWA Wastewater and Stormwater, and she also sits on the Canadian Plumbing and Mechanical Advisory Council for CWWA. So without further ado, Beth, the mic is yours.
Okay, I'm hoping everybody can see my presentation now.
Yes, welcome, Beth.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you, Monica, for the warm welcome. I understand everyone has choices in life, and that's what makes us all unique. For example, you can look at this slide and choose to see a white paper with splattered blue paint, or you can choose to see frosted windshield scraped to uncover the bright blue sky of possibilities. I choose to see the sky. Please remember that as I describe my challenges and clear the ice throughout my career, and think about how you have or could clear your own ice. I'm going to start with a bit about me. I've always had a big male influence and understanding surrounding me as I grew up with a family of 3 older brothers. All of us are still extremely very close. From a very young age, I was taught you could do whatever you put your mind to. I remember when I was about 11 or 12, two of my uncles brought one of my brothers and myself up to the roof of our cottage to teach us how to shingle. That was it. They showed us, then they were gone until my brother and I completed the roof. At the end, they went up to inspect and do the finishing touches. Their point was, you need to learn to do things for yourself. A year later, the same brother and I were told to shovel off the roof of our grandparents' cottage. So up we went. I fell off, the snow was so high, but it was like walking off. The point there was you must help others. Next, one uncle brought all 3 of my brothers and myself to help build his house. He was determined to show me how to swing a hammer properly. All of this was a great learning experience for me and probably brought on my love of working with my hands. I took that passion to both of my fabulous children that I'm immensely proud of every day. They are also hardworking, making a difference in what they do. They are why I work and what I measure my success on. Now I will be taking us all through my career journey, starting from 1993 to today, explaining the challenges and learnings that encompass each milestone along the way. In 1993, I was a wide-eyed student thinking of all the possibilities the world had to offer. I first started my journey with York Region when I requested a tour to see if wastewater operations would suit me. In fact, it really intrigued me. I knew I wanted to work with my hands and to always be in an environment that allows for continuous learning and growth, and the region provided that. During this time, I secured a co-op position, and this is truly where my journey began. 1994 left me with possibilities for full-time employment as multiple retirements were occurring. During this time, I interviewed for many positions. It was challenging as I was the first female applying for a physically demanding job in wastewater operations. The culture was established, but it shifted when I was hired. I was excited to start my career. I quickly learned water operations and went on call within 3 weeks. It really gave me a sense of pride to be able to troubleshoot the water system at a time when the water was low, but the demand was high. It is amazing how much you learn when you learn by doing. I always had others to call in case the situation became too much, but I was empowered to make my own choices. I learned a lot about hydraulics and water balancing during this year. The picture on the left shows our operations center looked like when I first started. There were no women's change rooms. There was a shared locker room. We had a women's bathroom, which I mostly used as my change room, unless the coast was clear and I could use the locker room. Sometimes it was just easier to come to work changed. The picture on the right is of me in 1999 doing labs at a water treatment plant. This site became a big part of my career as I advanced. Here's where my real journey began. As I advanced in my knowledge and licenses, I proved to bring on more challenges that left me defeated at times. I experienced some dark days as the culture was adapting to working with women. At times, it left me contemplating leaving the region. However, in the end, it taught me many life lessons that are irreplaceable. It taught me to be resilient, understand other people's viewpoints, how to manage myself, how to maneuver through a frontline male-dominated culture, how to challenge others to gain the outcome I desired, and how to persevere. In 2003, after having my second child, I accepted a chief operator job. This is where my career took a turn for the better. The region incorporated some positive changes in management in terms of acceptance. The management team was molding itself to be more efficient in the utilization of employees, individuals' differences and strengths. During this time, I was given opportunities to obtain Class 4s in water treatment, water distribution and supply, wastewater treatment, and wastewater collection as the region moved to combined water and wastewater operations. I also started to develop my leadership skills more. 2006, times had changed. An increase in women's perspective and input was gained in operations as more and more were hired. These women were exempt from the challenges I faced, demonstrating that positive change was occurring. 2006, I moved to management and was very happy to be a part of that change. I would never be the kind of person to say, I paid my dues, so should she. I always want to be a fair, consistent, supportive, and empathetic leader. I believe that women need to be there to uplift and support other women and men. When this is done, amazing things can be accomplished, not only professionally, but also personally. I've had the privilege to take leadership training, have an executive coach, and had great mentors along the way. I had advanced my career from an operator to a supervisor, to a manager, and to more recently, an acting director. I still deal with challenges head on, but very different ones. I don't shy away from difficult conversations, but I also keep an open mind and listen to the concerns. I have worked hard to demonstrate that women do belong in field operations and should be valued. I am a part of a thriving culture and will continue to guard it, ensuring diversity and equity. I've always been fascinated by leadership roles, as you can most vividly see the progression and achievement that you have helped attain for your organization. One of my accomplishments was leading the team that commissioned the first water membrane plant at York Region. This was a new and complex technology that we all had to operate and troubleshoot to ensure residents had the highest quality water possible. I was also the first team lead to incorporate water treatment, distribution supply, wastewater treatment, and collection operations into one area with 7 staff. I accomplished this through leading by example. If I was going to ask someone to do a task, I ensured I did it as well, including raking a bar screen. I have mentored many staff, leading to the evolvement of their careers. As one staff says, I'm good at shaving off the rough edges. I've always led highly regulated teams through and after Walkerton with exemplary results. I have gained a great deal of satisfaction from my work. Through these accomplishments, I not only helped my organization, but I also learned more about myself and what I was capable of. 2016, I received a call from a City of Toronto director asking me if I would like to co-chair the Canadian Water and Wastewater Association's Wastewater and Stormwater Committee. If I did, he would nominate me. My director was in complete support. This opportunity let me spread my wings. Having the ability to network with industry leaders throughout Canada really helped me understand what other industry leaders go through. By 2017, CWWA asked me to be a representative for them on the Advisory Council for Plumbing and Heating. Again, my employer supported this, leading me to a whole new world. I really started to understand the differences and gaps between the plumbing code and the provincial regulations. This sparked me to understand how we can make a positive change for both industries. I worked with many organizations to review the code change request I would be submitting, including York Region, Canadian Water and Wastewater Association, Regional Public Works Commissioners of Ontario, Canadian Institute for Plumbing and Heating, the American Society for Plumbing Engineers, the GTA chapter, Water and Environment Association of Ontario, and the Plumbing Mechanical Advisory Council. I incorporated all of the request changes, leading to 10 code change requests. This process has been very interesting as well, leading to all of the requests being rejected. Having said this, I am still choosing to challenge the process and will resubmit with a different approach. I prepared myself throughout my career to be in a position to be offered an acting director role by my commissioner. Feeling I had a strong water and wastewater operations background with the support of staff and union representatives, I took on the challenge. Being only in the role for just over 3 months, I feel like I have made positive progressions already for operations, maintenance, and monitoring branch, as well as environmental services as a whole. York Region has been a great place to learn and thrive. Over the years, I have accumulated new opportunities and strategies continuously. The fact that my career is far from stagnant demonstrates the agility of the region. The region is a very proactive leader within the industry, enforcing my growth. I want to stress the point that when you give back, don't hold on to the past, support others and yourself, and work outside of your comfort zone, you will evolve. It is okay to stumble along the way as we maneuver through life and working relationships. It is hard at times, but understand your value. I will always choose to look at the positive in my life. I have a full-time career that I love and supports my family. I see the white frosted windshield with a lot more ice scraped today as I consciously clear it. I really hope all of you do the same. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to all of our stories and for OPWA for having this conference. I think it shows how much people value what happens within the industry. Any questions, if there's any?
Yeah, for sure. We do have a couple of questions for you, Beth, and thank you so much for your presentation. How did you work through your dark days?
I looked at it as really, it wasn't so much about me as it really was about the culture. When you look at like the model for group development, you have the forming, storming, norming, performing. It really is no different. When you look at any change management that goes on in any industry or anybody's lives, you really have to look at what you're starting with. I mean, the group that I came into, they didn't have to think about the same things that they had to when I came into their world. And so I addressed their concerns. I didn't let them walk all over me. And I did definitely feel defeated at times, but I did enjoy the work and I had some supportive staff. I think the biggest thing is just realizing you are changing a culture and it takes time. It took 8 years. It took a long time, but it took 8 years to probably work through all of the different nuances that happen. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on in everybody's lives and how to change it. You got to realize that I was the pivot. I was the person making them change. I was the person who changed their world upside down. So I acknowledged that and tried not to take things personally and just tried to look at it from, okay, how do I challenge through this? How do I move to make this better? How do I, stay where I want? I enjoyed my job. And I think that was the biggest thing. I really found it interesting and challenging. And I leaned on the people who were supportive of me and just maneuvered through it. And it did change. The culture changed.
Thank you. There's still a couple other questions. So what is your biggest challenge currently?
So I think right now, it's really going through those code change requests. So again, talking about culture, it's a different culture when you look at the National Building Code or even the Ontario Building Code, which is, Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. It's different. So working through those changes, it's a new group, new process, new culture. I'm going to lean on the networks that I've already established with the Plumbing Advisory Committee. And I'll try to build the alliance for the change and see what I can do. So I will retackle it and really try to promote being at the table and maybe having a presentation to the committee who's making the decisions so that they are better informed.
Thank And last question I have right now is, what is your advice to others joining frontline operations?
I think it's be patient, understand your culture. You're walking into something different. You need to understand that. Don't think that people are going to look at things the same way that you do. It takes time to understand it. Lean on the people that you have built the trust with and the contacts. If you are really struggling, I would suggest that you reach out, whether it's family, friends, or a counselor or HR. There is people out there who can help you. You don't have to do it on your own. Learn as much as you possibly can, and don't let anybody hold you back. Stretch yourself outside your comfort zone and take control of your own career. Then once you get to that point, give back and show the way to others, regardless of the gender or ethnicity. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Beth. That's all we have for questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
So with this amazing presentation from Beth, we close our hard presentation program, and we're gonna move into the soft program, the social event. However, before that, I like to say to Beth, thank you and congrats for making this move. I think the region is very, very happy to have you in this role. You're the first director of operations in your region, and I truly remember your enthusiasm and your great support back in the day when we were working on updating all water and wastewater manuals, operation manuals in your region. That was quite an undertaking, and your passion and your determination will go a long way, and I'm sure you're gonna be a great leader. So with that, I say we take a 2-3 minutes break, and we reconvene at 1 p.m. at the top of the hour to have Allison taking us on a trivia journey. Remember, we have 3 complimentary registrations for next year waiting for you, and I promise it's gonna be fun. Thank you. See you soon. Hello, everyone. Now we will start our trivia. Alison?
Thank you, Mariana, and thanks to everyone still here joining us for the virtual trivia event. As I mentioned previously, we have 20 multiple choice questions. We are encouraging everyone to use their best guess and not to Google or use the internet. You'll be given approximately 30 seconds after I read the question, and then afterwards I will share the results and the answer. So good luck to everyone, and let's begin. So who was the first Aboriginal woman and, oh, sorry. Go back, sorry, we'll start with question number 1. What was the first province in Canada to give women the right to vote? Was it Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, or Quebec? A few more seconds here. And it looks like it's quite a tie, so this is good. This is interesting. 5 more seconds. And we will end the polling. So it looks like Manitoba was in the lead, and that is the correct answer. Manitoba was the first province in Canada to give women the right to vote. We'll go on to question number 2. Who was the first woman to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Was it Janis Joplin, Aretha Franklin, Joan Jett, or Pat Benatar? Ten more seconds. And we'll end the polling. So it looks like Aretha Franklin was the most popular answer, and that is the correct answer. So for everyone who guessed Aretha Franklin, she was the first woman to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Question number 3. What is Monica Geller's job on the popular show Friends? Was she a chef? Was she a receptionist, a singer, or an interior designer? A little pop culture question here for you. 10 more seconds. And we'll end the polling. So overwhelmingly, most of you guessed chef, and that is the correct answer. She was a chef on the show Friends. You guys are good. So 4th question, in 1958, she became NASA's first Black female engineer. The movie Hidden Figures is loosely based on her career as a human computer for NASA. Who is she? Was she Madam C.J. Walker, Rosa Parks, Mary McLeod Bethune, or Mary J. Jackson? 10 more seconds. Okay, we'll end the polling. So most of you guessed Mary J. Jackson, and that is the correct answer. Mary J. Jackson was the first female Black engineer at NASA. Question number 5. When was the first International Day Women's Celebration held? Was it May 28th, 1909, May 28th, 1954, May 28th, 1996, May 28th, 2008? Looks like we're pretty split on this one as well. 10 more seconds to cast your vote. Stop the polling. So the correct answer was actually May 28th, 1909. The first International Women's Day celebration was held in 1909. So yeah, only 12% got that one right. On to question number 6. What is Queen Elizabeth II's surname? Is it Spencer, Windsor, Mountbatten, or Middleton? Ten more seconds left to cast your vote. And we'll end the polling. So 71% of you got this one right. Queen Elizabeth II's surname is actually Windsor. Windsor was the correct answer. Those are good. Go on to question number 7. What is the total number of dots on a pair of dice? Is it 36, 52, 42, or 63? Ten more seconds left to cast your vote. And we'll stop the polling. So majority of you got this one right. It's 42. There are 42 dots on a pair of dice. 48% of you got that one right. Great job. Question number 8. Where was International Women's Day first celebrated? Was it Chicago, New York, Paris, or Atlanta? Looks like we're pretty split on this one. 10 more seconds. We'll stop the polling. So 35% of you got this right. The answer was New York. New York is where the first International Women's Day was first celebrated. Good job. So question number 9. In how many countries is International Women's Day considered an official holiday? Is it 2, 27, 51, or 88 countries? Ten more seconds left. And we'll stop the polling. So 49% of you said it was 2 countries, but the answer is actually 27. 27 countries it's considered an international holiday, an official holiday, sorry. Good job. Question number 10. What actress plays Penny on the popular show, The Big Bang Theory? Is it Kaylee Cuoco, Melissa Roach, Mayim Bialik, or Miranda Lambert? Ten more seconds left to cast your vote. Okay, we'll end the polling. So overwhelmingly, 81% of you guys got this one right. It is Kaylee Cuoco. She plays the actress Penny on The Big Bang Theory. Off to question number 11. A civil rights activist from Nova Scotia who challenged segregation practices prior to the civil rights movement. She's also featured on the Canadian $10 bill. Who is she? Emily Carr, Viola Desmond, Doris Anderson, or Pauline Johnson? 10 more seconds to cast your vote. Perfect, we'll end the polling. So 81% of you got this one right. It is Viola Desmond. She is featured on the Canadian $10 bill, and she was a civil rights movement activist. Good job. Question number 12. What country produces the most coffee in the world? Is it Italy, Brazil, South Africa, or Aruba? Looks like we have some coffee drinkers here. 10 more seconds. And we'll stop the polling. So 83% of you were correct. It is Brazil. Brazil produces the most coffee in the world. Question number 13. Who is considered the founder of modern nursing? Is it Florence Nightingale, Elizabeth Blackwell, Laura Secord, or Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler? Give you 10 more seconds. All right, we'll end the polling. So 74% of you were correct. Florence Nightingale is considered the founder of modern nursing. Question number 14. Which female scientist won 2 Nobel Prizes? Is it Marie Curie, Donna Strickland, Jennifer Doudna, or Nadia Murad? Looks like most of you know this one too. Ten more seconds. And the polling now. So 79% of you were correct. Marie Curie is the first female scientist to win 2 Nobel Prizes. Question number 15. This one was a recent one. Who was the first female NFL Super Bowl referee? Was it Sarah James, Sarah Thompson, Tara Pepper, or Donna J. Lewis? If we have any football fans here, hopefully you might know this one. Ten more seconds. And we'll end the polling now. So Sarah Thompson is correct. 54% of you got that one correct. So good job. Question number 16. What country produces the most bananas? Is it China, India, Venezuela, or Thailand? I actually didn't know this one. This one's tough. 10 more seconds left to cast your vote. And we'll end the polling now. So most of you thought it was Venezuela. The correct answer actually is India. India produces the most bananas, and only 24% of you got that one right. This was a tough one. So we'll go on to question number 17. Who was the first female Canadian astronaut in space? Was it Sally Armstrong, Roberta Bondar, Amelia Earhart, or Danica Patrick? Ten more seconds left. Looks like most people know the answer to this one. Okay, we'll end the polling now. So most of you were correct, 81% were correct. It is Roberta Bondar. She was the first female Canadian astronaut in space. Question number 18. So who was the first female general manager in Major League Baseball history? Was it Amelia Earhart, Kim Ng, Sarah Thomas, or Serena Williams? This one was a recent one as well. I believe it was back in 2020. 10 more seconds. Looks like most people have voted, so we'll end the polling. So Kim Ng is the correct answer, and 71% of you got that correct. Good job. So question number 19. So question number 19, who was the first Aboriginal woman and first Métis person to hold a seat in Canada's Senate? Was it Thelma Chalifot, Buffy Sainte-Marie, Sandra Lovelace Nichols, or Jean Cutland Goodwill? Ten more seconds. Looks like people are quite split on this one. And we'll stop the polling. So Thelma Chalifot was the most popular answer, and that is correct. 31% of you got that answer correct. So last but not least, question 20. She is a Cree broadcaster and poet, currently the host of Unreserved on CBC Radio. Who is she? Lee Miracle, Roseanne Supernault, Jean Cutland Goodwill, or Rosanna Deerchild? Ten more seconds left. We'll end the poll. So Rosanna Deerchild was the most popular answer. 71% of you answered correctly. She is the host of Unreserved and Cree broadcaster and poet. So congratulations, all of you who participated and who got these answers right. We will be in touch via email to 3 winners who will be chosen at random to win a complimentary entrance into next year's event. So congratulations to the winners and to everyone who participated. We appreciate it, and I will hand it back to Mariana.
Thank you very much, Alison. I hope everyone enjoyed our trivia questions and stretched your mind. So next up, you know, we getting close to our to the end of our webinar today. We talked about pivoting to the virtual platform. Everybody's pretty much tired of Zoom and WebEx and Microsoft Teams. However, this is our new normal, and we like to thank you all presenters, participants, volunteers, and OPWA board members for giving us the opportunity to celebrate together today. Today, this webinar had a number of registrants of 326, all the way from Vancouver to Sudbury to Montreal and Ottawa, and south to Fort Erie and even Washington, DC. We are extremely humbled by your interest and participation. This is what keeps us going every year. I am also grateful to my employer, City of Toronto, for allowing me to do this every year. And it is uplifting and inspiring, and it doesn't stop being better and better and more inspiring and motivating for more younger female generations to reach heights. So by joining us today, you demonstrated that you already challenged the odds in order to make progress and adapt to the new normal. We all learned that from our speakers, our great speakers, that it takes grit and determination to embrace every challenge with gratitude and grace. It is a privilege to feel the pressure of taking on new challenges and sometimes dare to fail in order to succeed. 2020 was an unprecedented leap year on every front possible that brought unthinkable challenges and opportunities for everyone, and especially for women. Little we knew exactly 1 year ago when we were happily closing the event at the Mississauga Grand. Fast forward 1 week and we were entering the global pandemic and the state of emergency. Since then, we all adapted to teleworking, redefined ourselves, and built up the resilience required to ensure essential services continuity. We are now probably living the most important time of our lives, and I think that's what Toronto's mayor said at the beginning of the pandemic. And once again, we are very grateful for celebrating International Women's Day with 4 outstanding female leaders and a record number of participants. This was only possible thanks to our avid supporters at OPWA, Brian Barber, Enrico Stradioro, Don Cudo, and Angela Story. Lastly, but not the least, on behalf of the OPWA, I would like to thank our team of volunteers who once again came together and produced this event. Please wave as you hear your name. If you can turn up your video. Angela Carley, Alison Bowden, Astrid Katz, Andrea Pitura, Monica Rivera, and Tara Clayton. I'm very proud of these talented ladies who, besides being the best planners and coordinators I know, they also are good site inspectors, managers, contract administrators, engineers, technologists, and project managers. I would also like to take this opportunity and call for operator volunteers to be part of our committee. So let's give everyone a round of virtual applauses. I can promise you that next time when we will have an in-person event, the applauses will be loud and clear. So I will just do it for you today. And next up, Before signing up, please take a few more minutes and complete our survey. Keep safe and sound until we meet again in 2022. The webinar will end in order for you to complete the survey. So thank you once again and keep safe.